Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about why Dead by Daylight is so negatively seen by people outside of its community. Before I go further, yes, I understand it's seen negatively by people inside of its community as well, but it's viewed through a different form of negativity, mostly to like questionable balance changes and, shit like that. People outside of the community will swear to you that it is the most toxic cesspool of devil-spawned demons that will kill you and your family for tunneling and is the most toxic community ever. Basically, the point is the hate for the game is massively over-dramatized by people that don't actually participate in the game's community. Again, not saying there aren't issues. There are very real issues in the game and community and stuff like that. But I want to go over why it is seen as like the bottom of the bottom. Because truthfully, as someone that has played this game for pretty much 10 years now, it's not that bad. It's got its issues, of course, but it's not as terrible as people outside of the community would make it seem like it is. And I'm going to use a couple of examples of content creators recently speaking about the game. I'm not going to name them or go into who they are or anything like that. This is not a video about them or like drama or anything like that. I just want to go over points that they've made and go over how it's not really reflective of DBD as a whole. But there has to be a reason these things keep happening, because every time an external content creator talks about Dead by Daylight, what do you see? It's the exact same bullet point comments every single time. Most toxic community on Earth, terrible, terrible game, Survivor rulebook, all that stuff. I want to go over that third part there. The Survivor rulebook I have found from combing through the chats of people that are talking about this game, content creators, it is by far the most commonly cited issue as to why the game is an absolute train wreck. People go over the Survivor rulebook and how if you break the Survivor rulebook, you will be literally murdered and your entire family lineage will be deleted from existence and stuff like that. And then these content creators will either repeat that or not debate that, and just that perpetuates this going further and further. I want to use a recent example that I saw of a content creator that was going over the game. And now he was not a DBD player. He had never played the game before. So he was talking about it. He was looking at the Steam charts going, man, I can't believe so many people played this game, because DBD has over 1 million players a day. It's still a wildly successful game. And he was like, how is that even happening? Because from someone outside the community, you might think, oh, wasn't that like a little meme game in 2016? How the fuck is it still this big? So perfectly valid thing to be curious about. And as soon as he brought this up, people in his chat were going over, how terrible the game is. No one knows how it's done this well, blah, 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 blah. And then they started bringing up things like the Survivor rulebook. And so the streamer was talking about them going, okay, so there's this rulebook, like you can't like what, camp people and stuff like that. And the streamer, very understandably, as someone that has never played the game, said, well, why wouldn't I want to just face camp someone to ensure they can't get off of this hook thing, right? Isn't that what I would want to do? And again, as someone that's never played the game before, perfectly rational conclusion to come to. Obviously, if you play the game, you can't do that. There's an anti-camping bar, and you'll just be able to unhook yourself with 15 seconds of basically invulnerability. But it's perfectly understandable that the streamer would not know about these things. And so I expected the chat to be like, oh, no, you can't do that. That they fixed that a long time ago. But no, everyone in the chat was like, yeah, no, face camping, it's so OP. I face camp as Leatherface. It's just like, it's like the best thing ever. It's such a good strategy, and survivors are so mad when you do it. I'm just like, these people have not played the game in like half a decade. These are not actually people that play Dead by Daylight. They probably had a bad experience once in like 2017, and now they're just basing all decade later thoughts on the game off of really, really outdated shit. And that leads to a lot of frustrations, because I'm seeing this in chat, and then the streamer is being reaffirmed by essentially nonsense, and that just confirms to a bunch of other people that don't play the game, well, this must be true. Everyone's agreeing about this shit, when none of it's true. These people don't even fucking play the video game to understand what they're talking about. So that's the first frustrating part. A lot of the hatred from the game comes from people that don't even play the game. I'll go into that more a bit later, because it does kind of signal my main point that I want to talk about. But there are really a lot of citations about the Survivor rulebook. That is like one of the major things that people bring up. It's the first issue mentioned anytime someone brings up DBD from an external community. The Survivor rulebook, can't tunnel, can't slug, can't do this, can't do that, blah, 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 blah. And it is seen super negatively by people. Now, I want to go over that because I have never understood this as being the fuel for considering the community to be the worst community in gaming or anything like that. It doesn't make any sense to me because this shit happens in every game. Dead by Daylight is not the only game that exists in which people will bitch about stupid things. I'm going to go use a classic example, Modern Warfare 2, the Noob Tube. The Noob Tube is a annoyingly effective tool that you can use that if you do, people will bitch at you for. What does that sound like? That's the Survivor rulebook in DBD. It's the exact same thing, but for some reason, DBD gets so much more shit for it, and I think I know why. It's because of the asymmetrical nature of this argument that it becomes inherently more tribalistic and thus seems like a lot more severe than it actually is. Because with Modern Warfare, it's just like everyone hates the noob tube. Everyone is agreed on this same topic. We hate going against this shit. It's annoying. You can use it, but fuck you if you do. With DBD, it's not like that because the killer is probably going to like playing Blight because he's super strong, and he's going to like tunneling because it lets him win more. But the survivors are not going to like that. So we have this cognitive dissonance here because there's two opposing roles bitching at each other for different things. So it's not that the community is any worse, it's the game is asymmetrical, so you can't have this universal shared hatred of things, thus people can't bond over disliking these things, and people will just argue with each other about it. Again, the community is not worse than any other community. The game being asymmetrical makes the tribalistic nature of these arguments seem a lot more severe than it actually is compared to other games. That is one of the first major points. Secondly, the whole Survivor rulebook thing. I've never really understood this. The vast majority of the time, if you break the Survivor rulebook, what happens is nothing. Usually nothing will happen. I'd say the majority of the time you break this rulebook, nothing will happen. Sometimes you'll get a salty guy in chat saying you're a tunneling bitch, blah, blah, blah. Rarely you'll get someone pushed way over the edge and tells you to kill yourself or something like that, which again, not really unheard of in online gaming, but I'm not going to defend that. That's too much. I don't care about any of the other stuff, but once you start going personal like that, it's too much. So, but those people get banned. You can't do that in post-game chat. And that's it. That's pretty much the most severe outcome that will ever happen in DBD if you break this rulebook, is rarely someone will probably tell you to kill yourself. Is that good? No, it's terrible. It shouldn't happen, but again, it's an online PvP game that will happen in every single online PvP game at about the same ratio that it happens in DBD. This is no different from anything else. The problem is some of these content creators have just invented scenarios that do not even happen. I was watching another content creator about a month ago, and they were talking about the Survivor rulebook, and he was saying if you don't follow this rulebook, you will be targeted and doxxed and, harassed in real life. And just, no, it just doesn't happen. I think there was one instance like 6 years ago where that happened to like a group of people, but you do not get doxxed for your behavior in a match of DBD. It really doesn't happen. I think, like I said, it's happened like I can count on one hand in the billions and trillions of hours of DBD. It's on one hand, I can count the instances of that happening based on gameplay. So definitely no more or less than other gaming communities. And it's funny because some of the communities that these content creators are from have provably had more examples of that happening than in DBD, but they seem to be clinging on to this idea that if you break this rulebook, you will actually be like doxxed in real life. And that just simply does not happen. It is not an occurrence that you have to worry about 99.99999% of the time. Again, I can't say it has never happened before, but that is seriously not something that it is a normal thing in DBD. So most of the problems with the Survivor rulebook are basically player-made prisons, and they get upset when they can't get out of the prison they just made. If post-game, salt annoys you, click the little box. You never have to see post-game chat ever again. Solved. Like, it's not any better or worse than any other community. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying it's no better or worse than any other game, and yet DBD gets so much incredible flack for it. Now, I want to hone in on the main point of all of this here. All of these things have a similar linking point between them. A lot of the times when these things are talked about, like the example I gave earlier, the people in the chat don't even play Dead by Daylight. But the thing is, a lot of them have played the game at some point. DBD has had like 60 million players or something like that. There's a good chance if someone plays games on the internet, they probably tried DBD at some point. The problem is the experience that they had was probably really shitty. And this is the main point of the video. The sole reason I think you see so much vitriol and hatred for DBD to a comically exaggerated amount outside of the game's community is because the new player experience is just terrible. And this is something I will sympathize with these people to no end. The new player experience in DBD is just abysmally bad. So it makes perfect sense you have some guy try the game for 10 hours and go, man, this game fucking sucks. Anytime someone asks me about this game, I'm going to tell them my experience in it sucks. Now, they basically don't have any experience in it, but the experience that they actually had is still a true, real experience that they had, and it truthfully really was bad. So that is what I think needs to be fixed for DBD's perception over time to be eventually not healed, but made a lot better. The problem is the new player onboarding is terrible. The tutorial system was made in like 1967. It's got asbestos still lining in it. It does not cover basically anything that currently exists in the form of the game that we have now. Like, just as an example, if somebody, hates getting tunneled or something like that, there's a free perk you can just equip. You don't have to pay for it. It's a free perk called Decisive Strike, and it is very, very good against tunneling. But nothing in the game tells you to do that. You would have to naturally get the perk on your blood web, read what it does, and apply what it would actually do in a match to be useful. Or you can start looking for external resources like content creators and streams and videos and stuff like that, but that's not really a good way to do it. To learn the game, go somewhere else, that's shitty. The new player experience for this game needs to be made so much better, and you can do that via in-game tutorials, making the Shrine of Secrets better and more targeted, removing perk tiers. Like, there's a million things you can do to make the frustrations of playing this game when you're new far, far less. Because the truth is, when you're newer to the game, you're gonna see more of this vitriol far more frequently because people simply don't understand the game at all. I'm not saying it doesn't happen on high MMR as well, like it absolutely does, but it is provable that you will encounter more bitching at lower MMR for breaking the rulebook, for example, because people just simply don't know any better. If a survivor is getting tunneled when he's new to the game, he's going to think, wow, this killer's a dick. He's just tunneling me to be a dick. As you get more experience and you start playing killer and stuff, you start realizing, oh, he's just trying to make sure he can win this fucking game at this point. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen everywhere, because it still does, but my point is it's way more prevalent when you're newer to the game. So that would make sense that your opinion of it would be so much worse because, yeah, it is worse when you're newer. So new player resources would go a long way in making the perception of this game a lot better. Again, it'll never really be good because it's an online PvP game. And I also started realizing that it's not particularly DBD in general. It's sort of any PvP game. If you're like a content creator, bring up any PvP game at all that's not your main game and look at your chat's reaction. I guarantee it's going to be overwhelmingly negative. I don't know really why that is, but there's like this inherent tribalism too, to where basically every game that's not the main game being talked about is seen as super negative. There's a couple of rare exceptions, but that is just sort of another negativity bias thing too. And there's also negativity bias because people that are no longer in the game's community and because they played it and were scorned once by it are going to, of course, be negative about it. So it stands to reason that people inside these communities that are not DBD will be more negative than positive about it. It's not like there's a lot of overlap between DBD and, a lot of other games. It's a very unique experience. And despite having a shit ton of players, it is still, unique at the end of the day. So basically, boiling over the entire argument of what I've been going over here, the game itself, yes, it's got its share its problems. It has community problems and stuff like that, but it's really exaggerated by, I think, people that had a very bad experience with it and just simply have not achieved enough time in the game to realize these problems are not as bad as they're saying. Again, I'm not saying there aren't problems, but a lot of them are really, really heavily tilted by initial really bad experiences. And I think behavior really needs to step the fuck up and make the new player experience better because there's just no excuse anymore. They've had plenty of time to do this shit, and they really need to start thinking about that a lot more. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.